I stopped getting the referral fees 5 years ago when I became a real estate agent. I stopped referring business to Marcella. I kept those people as my own clients. Just 3 weeks ago, I got another check from somebody I referred over 5 years ago to her. $1,140. It's mailbox money. Just showed up in the mailbox. I'm laughing all the way to the bank. I don't even know who it was that I referred to her. It's so long ago. But that person bought another property and I got paid. So I love being a finder on those clients. And I love finding finders and having them send me their friends, and I will pay them the referral fee.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Brad Warren, who will share how to build wealth through land banking. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. Today's quote comes from Mark Twain. Buy land. They're not making it anymore. Well, I guess it depends who you are. Elon Musk and some of these other people are trying to get land on other planets. Good luck to them. I'm staying on Earth. Global warming, believe it or not, maybe it takes away land. Again, the reality is there's only so much land, and depending on where you are, its value is dramatically different. But it's a way to build wealth, and again, it's just another possibility. You have to figure out what works for you. I always like to explore new ways to invest in things that are not what you normally hear, and that's why we're going to be chatting about land today. We've talked about land flipping, which is very different. This is kind of a larger, longer-term hold in a different business model. At the end of the day, the key in all real estate is location, location, location. And it seems to be much, much less of a hassle and a much better way to get great returns when you can be in the path of success. But here's the deal. This is not overnight wealth. This takes time. The great thing about land is no tenants, hopefully, unless it's farmland, and you could use it as farmland. No toilets, no issues, all a little bit easier. But on the other side, no income necessarily. Our guest is Brad Warren. He's a national and international speaker and coach. He's traveled to 19 countries and throughout the United States for over 40 years teaching business. He's coached 500 plus business owners, and he is also part of the East Association of Realtors Affiliate of the Year in the Bay Area. He's author of Just Sold, the Real Estate Professional Guide to Selling More in Less Time. And after 40 years as a business coach, he's transitioned to a new career as a land banking specialist, helping investors build generational wealth by investing in land. Let's meet Brad and see how he does it. Welcome to Richer Soul, Brad Warren. It's great to have you join us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Rocky.
excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, I grew up in Great Neck, New York on Long Island, and I would say my school taught me nothing, which is pretty indicative of people in my age bracket. I'm 72 now. I was born in 1951. And I learned everything pretty much by watching my father. He was a paint salesman for a huge portion of his life. Then he became an entrepreneur, I guess. He opened his own paint factory, and it was him, me, and my brother, and that was it. He had one other guy that helped out. And pretty much we were, I guess, middle class, lower middle class, not very wealthy. And I started working. I was probably 9 years old, started babysitting. They had, I think, 7 or 8 women on our block were all pregnant at the same time. They all had kids, and I wound up babysitting almost every one of them. I had a paper route. I shoveled snow in the winter, raked leaves in the fall, cut grass in the summer. I had a paper route. So I learned about money by observing my parents and their interactions. And also, I needed to have it if I wanted to buy anything, because it was pretty much, mom and dad fed me and they would buy my clothes, but additional clothes, I was on my own. Movies, going bowling with the guys, softball mitt, all that money was money I had to earn.
Kids don't do that these days, do they?
I don't think so. I know our daughter grew up a little bit differently. We tried to teach her about some of the principles about money, but she didn't do a lot of work. Now she babysits. She's 31 and she gets these babysitting jobs for like $20, $30 an hour. And I think I was making 50 cents back then.
The world changes, right?
It does.
You just got to keep changing with it. You never know what's going to be next and how it's going to come about. So you grew up, you watched your dad. He taught you a little bit about money, and then you became a business coach. What was that like?
Well, it was kind of by accident. I went to MIT thinking I was going to get into computers. This was 1969 when I left to go to MIT, which is a technical school pretty much. But I wound up in the humanities department. I got a BS in philosophy and psychology, which basically meant I couldn't do anything. So I went to Europe for a year, hitchhiked around for an entire year through Western Europe, came home, moved to California, hitchhiked actually across the U.S., and got a master's in education, hoping to be a guidance counselor, and couldn't find a job as a guidance counselor. And I became a consultant and started to, work with people individually. And at one point, a friend called me and said, "Hi, I want you to coach me." I said, "Coach, that's like sports, right?" He said, No. It's like, you're really good at asking questions, and I need somebody to hold me accountable," which are two of the main skills of a coach, is asking good questions and then letting the client come up with the answer, and then holding the client accountable when they say, "I will do X by Y time. I will knock on these many doors on Saturday," and then you hold them accountable. So I just found that I was good at asking questions. I was good at listening. This was my master's in education training to be a guidance counselor, taught me how to ask questions and then actually listen to the answers. And I started coaching people and wound up for several years, worked for the Keller Williams Real Estate Company as one of their coaches, and just kind of had that niche. I also got into training and speaking, which I was good at and really loved. My earliest recollection, Rocky, of being on stage, I think I was 4 years old. My parents had an 8mm reel, that they actually took a movie camera, and I gave a little speech when I was like 4 at this little daycare school. So love talking. I love cracking jokes. And so I had a speaking and training and coaching career for just a little over 40 years.
That's quite interesting. It's surprising to hear you went to MIT, but you didn't go for tech. It's funny because I think for a long time, philosophy was not seen as a major of value, so to speak. I think in the last 10 plus years, philosophy has become more synonymous with learning to think critically, which is a lost skill.
Yes.
Did you experience that?
Yes. You just reminded me, I heard this quote that common sense is not so common anymore. And I think we've learned to not question. We've learned to just, that person is from Harvard, or that person's on TV, or that person has a suit and a tie, jacket and a tie on. They're an expert and they must be right. And I never adhere to that. not hardly ever. I was always questioning and asking questions, and well, why is that? And how come that? And well, where did that thinking come from? And like you said, a lot of the personal development work that's going on today, and has been going on for decades, actually, has always been about exploring that independent voice in each one of us, and to question, not just question authority, like they said back in the 60s, when I was protesting the Vietnam War at the time, but it's to think for yourself and to look at, where does your thinking come from? Like, how did I get that? It's like I've read several people have said, well, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. If you were brought up in the Midwest on a farm with very conservative values, and, you would probably have a gun and know how to use one. And, you would probably vote a certain way, and it would be perfectly normal. And they would look at me and go, you must be wacko. How did you get that thought? And why do you think that? And why are you taking my gun away? And so I've learned to not be as judgmental as I've gotten older, and to listen a little more carefully to other people's viewpoints and try to understand. What is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits? Seek first to understand, then be understood. God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. Listen twice as much as you talk, which for me is really hard, Rocky, because I like to talk a lot. So it's requires a tremendous amount of restraint to keep my mouth closed and not just listen to form my rebuttal. A lot of people listen getting ready. They're waiting for the other person to take a breath so they can jump in and say their point. And I've learned to just slow down and really just listen. Well, tell me how you came to that conclusion. And where did that thought come? It sounds like you're echoing the voice of somebody from your past. Well, yeah, my dad or my preacher or clergy person, rabbi, or I heard it on the news, but then you explore a little, you dig a little.
And that makes a lot of sense. It seems, I don't know if this is something that happens with age, where it's a sign of the current times. But as I look around, all of the institutions that were supposed to do well and protect us and do X, Y, Z, they all seem to be failing massively at what they were supposed to do. And I think people are becoming more aware of that across the board, whatever it is. And I don't know if it's always been that way and I'm just waking up to it, or if it's a sign of the times. You kind of made a comment about personal development, saying it's always been like that and it's been there for a long time. And I'll be honest, as I look back through some of the materials that I look at that are 30, 40, 50 years old, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize personal development was such a big thing back then. And I'm starting to realize, every generation just has its flavor of it, but it's been around a lot longer than, it's not the new age thing as they made it out to seem, I guess.
Right. I remember the Werner Erhard training, which was the mid to late 70s when it started taking off. I took it in 1980. So what's that? 43 years ago. And even Werner was talking about Kierkegaard and Heidegger and Freud. And, he was even referring back to philosophers, along much further back. And now, more new agey, Rumi and the yogis. The flavor has changed a little, but they're all pretty much saying the same thing. Know thyself. And what's the one in the doctors? Physician, heal thyself. And for the rest of us, it's know thyself, dig deep, find out, where did you get that thought? Why do I have these beliefs that I have? Where do they come from? Beliefs are instilled. You're not born a certain way. You are, in my opinion, again, I don't have proof of this, but when you're born, you're kind of like you're a little baby, and you're going to pick up stuff that's around you. And that usually means your parents first, your teachers next, someone in the religious field, rabbi, clergy, that will come in as well. And that all shapes me, shapes you as an individual. And at some point, you might need to stop and question some of that. Where did that come from? Where did they get it from? Well, they got it from their parents, who got it from their parents, who got it from their parents. Is it still useful? Does it work? Does it treat everybody equally and wonderfully? And if not, then maybe you need to examine whether it's useful.
And that's why we asked the first question that I asked you, is to learn what was your default programming around money. And, the funny thing is, I've had pretty much everyone who comes on the podcast is successful, highly successful. But yet the amount of people who come on the podcast that came from silver spoons and the higher end of the net worth spectrum as children is not that high. It's a very, very small percentage. I find that having to struggle as a kid is the spark for many people to have success later in life. And unless the parents were intentional in creating the spark and they had money. So it's just an interesting thing to watch and see.
Totally agree.
You spent a lot of years as a business coach. What were some of the major ahas that you learned during that time?
I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question. Well, I found that my clients needed, wanted, and benefited from accountability. And that was basically, I promised to do X by this time on this date. And there goes my phone. I told you the phone might ring, and somebody calling to ask me some more questions. And I just found that it was something I was good at because I wrote down what they said, which was not something that other people in their life were doing. So let's take a real tour as an example. Brad, I will go door knock 50 homes this Saturday and have at least 5 conversations with live human beings. And then they would have to report, let's say on Monday, they would report to me, here's how many I knocked on Saturday. Here's how many conversations I had. And with that level of accountability, their results went way up. And so that was one thing that I found is accountability is crucial. I had a coach for decades, several coaches actually for decades. I've got one now. And I find that when I make a promise to my coach, I am much more likely to do it than if I make the promise to myself. Because we all know the first person to whom you break your promises is yourself. You just look in the mirror. When was the last time you said, I will stop eating this and I will start walking every day and I will fill in the blank? And if you don't say it to someone else and then they hold you accountable, likelihood drops dramatically that you're actually going to do it. So that was probably the biggest thing. The second biggest thing I would say is I had 3 main things that I did with my clients. They had to have goals. They had to know, where am I going? Am I going to work with buyers or sellers? Very different coaching if they're working with buyers or sellers. So what are my goals? What's my plan? Am I going to door knock? And this was years ago, decades ago. Am I going to send out postcards? We didn't have the internet then. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have the phones with videos on them. So they had to think of other ways, more old-fashioned ways, I guess we would say, belly to belly, door to door, knock, knock. Hi, I'm a realtor. I live in this area. I was just wondering if you're thinking of selling your house, whatever their script was. So it was goals, plan of action. And then every Sunday, I learned this in October of 1982, and I haven't missed one Sunday since then. So go figure out how many years that is. I plan my week in advance. I take 30 minutes every Sunday and I map out what I'm going to do this next 7 days based on my goals and my plan of action. What are the specifics? Who am I actually calling? And when am I calling? What podcasts am I going to listen to? What podcasts am I going to get on? We schedule this and it's a certain day at a certain time. And I look you up on LinkedIn and I read about your background. You and I actually talked prior to this actual call today. We were on meeting each other before I got invited to be on the show. You obviously doing your homework, make sure I can actually speak well and I have something to share. So I found that planning that week in advance, absolutely critical to my success.
It's funny. The whole accountability thing was a major aha to me with my clients. I didn't realize that holding them accountable was a big part of my delivery in the whole process, and also just mapping out the action plan, helping them figure out the next step to take, and then holding them accountable to that was literally what it came down to. Now, recently, I've had a couple other ahas, and some of those ahas are talking with clients, because we talk numbers, right?
Right.
We're starting to talk about feelings, and the feelings around the numbers much more so than we've ever done in the past, so that we understand what they're doing. But even bigger than those ahas was tying their actions to their outcomes. So let's take your example. I don't know about anybody listening, but I'm guessing 99% of people are going to be like, I don't want to knock on 50 doors this Saturday, and I don't want to talk to 5 people, right? But what if you say to someone, knock on 50 doors, talk to 5 people, your kids will have a paid for college. And when you start to do that and you tie it back to their needs, their goals, their desires, it's like, let's call on 60 doors. I need to make sure that we got grad school covered.
Right.
And I want to get this done as fast as possible so that I don't have to keep doing it forever.
Yeah.
And
well, you're bringing up the why. Why are you doing this? You're not just knocking on 50 doors to hurt your knuckles and wear holes in the soles of your feet. You're doing it to find clients. Why are you finding clients? So I can make money. Why do you want to make money? So I can fill in the blank. Take my wife on a great vacation, put the kids through school, buy a bigger house, whatever your end result. I'm actually taking a personal development course with a guy named Vishan with an organization called Mind Valley. I just found out about him a couple months ago. We bought the 1-year program where my wife and I are already completed one class. We're in another one called Be Extraordinary. And he talks about means goals and end goals. So some goals, they're the means to the end. And if you ask the question, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And eventually they get to, so I can do this. So I can take my wife on the trip that I promised her on our honeymoon 40 years ago and never took her on. And I'm so embarrassed and I felt shame about it for 40 years. Well, that's a pretty big why. That'll get you out of bed in the morning and get you to knock on 100 doors if you have to. It's not about the money per se. Money's important. Let's not, poo-poo that. You got to have money. Harv Eker once said, the people who say money isn't important don't have any. And they're the ones that, I said money's not important to me. Yeah, you're broke. Of course it's not important to you. But most people recognize the place that money has in society. It offers options. It offers you opportunities that don't exist to somebody that has a lesser amount. Doesn't mean that the lesser amount person can't be happy. You can be ecstatic with very little money. There's lots of people that are. I'm not saying money's the be all end all. It's more about why are you doing this? What is your end result, your outcome, as you said? What is the outcome of this? Okay, so you knock on the doors, you talk to people, and you get a listing. And then you sell the house. What are you doing with that money? Are you giving it to charity to help others? Are you putting your kids through school? What's the end result? And I'm starting to look at my goals a lot more in terms of that.
Vishan's ex-wife, the co-founder of Mind Valley, was just on the podcast recently. Christina was
fabulous.
on talking about becoming flawsome.
I heard she's doing a book launch.
Yes.
Or maybe just did it.
She just did the book launch. It's hit bestsellers across multiple top lists. And it was exciting to be part of that and to have her on the show and
fabulous.
Share her story. So small world. Mind Valley's got some really cool stuff that they have put out over the years, and very much enjoyed taking some of their programs. Now in life, I'm like, oh my God, there's more programs than what I can do, and I have to figure out how to pick and choose and decide what is next and which one works best. That's all. There's in today's world, I think there's more knowledge than I can keep up with.
Oh, by far. And the more, it's funny, I'm 72, and the more I learn and explore, the more I know, I find what I don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's just like you're saying, we're like 3 lessons away from finishing the 30 lesson Be Extraordinary program. We're doing 1 lesson a day, so it's taking us a month. And already it's like, well, okay, what's the next one? We're going to have to start researching out of the hundreds that are available. What are we doing next? Silva Mind Control? Are we going to do Wild Fit and get our bodies back in shape or in better shape? Actually, they're in pretty good shape. So there's just so much out there. Picking and choosing. I bought Vishen's book, the Code of Enlightenment, I think it's called, and I'm in the middle of reading that.
I have Code of the Extraordinary Mind.
Okay, maybe that's it.
Okay.
Yes. It's in my bedroom, but I'm reading that one now. So it's like I'm back into reading. I used to be a voracious reader. I used to read a book a week when I was working for the Fred Pryor Seminar Company, traveling around the world, doing, speaking in front of audiences. And I would take a lot of books because I was on planes, I was in hotel rooms, waiting for the next day. And I was devouring like a book a week, 40, 50 books a year easily. And then it dropped down to like 3 or 2. And now I'm back into reading more. And I've got a list. In fact, here's my list right on my desk. Every time I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books on the list to go purchase or get from the library. They're free from the library, folks. If you don't have money, good. Get a library card. Go to the library. There's like thousands of books there. And there's even audio books now, for crying out loud. You don't even have to read. You can listen in your car and someone will read you the whole book. So there are ways to expand your knowledge and keep on expanding. Never stop.
Never stop. So why did you decide to get into real estate at the age of 67?
Well, I do. And so this goes back to numbers. So I do a quarterly net worth statement for my wife and I. I've been doing it since January, February, March. Yeah, the end of the first quarter of 1989. We were getting married about in August of 89. And so I started this just before we got married and have not missed a quarter since then. And on December 31st, 2011, I looked at the numbers, Rocky, and I realized, Marie, that's my wife, she could retire on her own with her 401k. Together, we could retire with her 401k and my meager savings. But by myself, if I was a single guy, there was no way I had enough money. At that point, I was 60. I was about, in the next month, I was going to turn 61. And I did not have enough money. I knew at that point you needed probably close to $1 million in order to have enough. Today, it's more like 3 to 4 million is what my CPA friends are telling me. 3 to 4 million at the rate that it will increase the amount you draw out, blah, blah, all that. And that's what you do. You help people figure that kind of stuff out. And I realized I couldn't retire. So I called my land banker, Marcella Silva, good friend of mine. And in January of 2012, she comes to the house with her laptop, does her presentation on land banking. My wife gets up and walks out of the room. She goes, not interested. I like my mutual funds. I like my company match, my 401k. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Walked out. I turned to Marcella and said, the only way I'm going to amass enough money in a relatively short amount of time, say another 10 to 20 years, so I can retire, is by buying land, because nothing else is going to give me the kind of returns that it looks like this can do. So I bought my first property in March of 2012. I got a second property a year later, another one a year later. Then my wife comes with me to a presentation Marcella's doing at a hotel, where they rent the room and all of the investors bring their friends and to meet Marcella and to get them to invest as well. So she comes along the whole way in the car, Rocky. She's going, now I'm not going to invest. I'm not going to invest. I just might have missed something 3 years ago because you've been doing this and you have little bags of dirt from the places where you own the dirt. And you go to the company has a yearly annual meeting, for investors. And you go down to LA to do that. And maybe I missed something, but I'm not going to buy. Long story, very short. We get to the hotel. She listens to Marcella and she buys 2 properties right there in the hotel. Had her checkbook with her, which I didn't know. And the whole way home, I'm like, I thought you weren't going to buy, honey. Huh? And she's like, shut up. I get it now. I understand. So we got number 4 and 5. And then since then we bought another 6. So we now own 11 properties. And I'm not worried about the future anymore. I know those properties are going to sell for very, very lucrative returns. We call it generational or legacy wealth. And it will be enough for my wife and I to retire very, very comfortably, do whatever we want, and still have quite a bit left over for our daughter. Of course, we don't tell her. She knows we own land, but she doesn't know she's going to be very wealthy one day.
Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. I own real estate. I have not, technically I own land, right? It's underneath my real estate.
Yes, and you do.
Honestly, one of the properties that we bought, we actually bought it in part because of how the land was zoned. So it was a single family house, but it was actually on a commercial lot, very close to commercial. Like it was a block away from a major through street business area, so forth, to the point that if they ever expand, it's fine. And in the meantime, I owned a commercial lot. Next door was an empty, also commercial lot. And I happen to know who owns that one. And so we could easily combine them to make a bigger commercial lot. And so that was kind of the reason, and it does have a lot of land under it. So that was an opportunity. Haven't done anything, but in the meantime, it sits and it appreciates. And because I have a house on it, then I collect rent. So at least I'm making money in the meantime, and it's good. But being a landlord is work. I think from what you're talking about, there is no work. There's no clogged toilets. There's none of that type of stuff. So can you explain to us what land banking is?
Yes. And we always like to joke, no tenants, toilets, termites, or trouble. The T's. You still have taxes, but on land, it's very low. So the basic concept is I always like to ask people when I wear my little name tag, it says Brad Warren, land banker. And I'm out at like a mix or something. People says, land banking, what's that? What's a land banker? I say, I usually go like this. I say to them, so Rocky, either when you were growing up or in the town that you currently live in, have you ever driven past a vacant lot and kind of wondered to yourself, gee, I wonder how much that is. Maybe I should buy it. I wonder if they'll build an apartment building on it or something. And then you didn't buy it. And 10 years goes by, you're driving down that same street. And what's there now? An apartment building. And you're kicking yourself in your rear end because you didn't buy it 10 years ago when it was cheap and then sell it to the developer for a really big profit. That is the basic idea of land banking. It's buying land that is strategically placed in the path of growth. Key point, it can't be out in the middle of nowhere. It has to be in the path of growth or you're not going to get the returns that we like our investors to get. And then you do nothing except pay your property tax once a year. In California, EA Proposition 13 keeps property taxes very low when you first buy it. And it also keeps it very low year over year. It can only go up 2% maximum per year. So your first year, you're paying $500 in taxes. The next year, you're going to pay $510. So it goes up $10. Next year it goes up $10.20 or something. So it's very, very low carrying. Those are called carrying costs. And then you just wait. And then eventually the developer knocks on your door, says, "Hi, Rocky. I see that you bought this house and this land. By the way, do you know that your land is zoned commercial?" And you might want to play dumb at that point. You say, "Well, gee, I wasn't aware of that. Why are you knocking on my door?" "Well, this big shopping center right next door to you, they want to expand. Things are going great. People are moving into this particular city. We see a lot of growth coming, and they'd like to buy this land and your neighbor's land and extend the commercial aspect of this center, this mall, whatever it is. We may have to tear your house down. But are you interested in selling?" Now, if you are interested in selling, you're going to get a really good price for that land, way more than it's worth with the house on it, because they need dirt. Everybody needs dirt to build something. So that's the basic concept of land banking. Buy land while it's cheap and affordable, in the path of growth, wait, hold, and then sell to a developer who wants to build 500 homes, a shopping center, a solar farm. A lot of our clients are buying what we call green real estate or green energy real estate. They're buying vacant land that's in the non-residential / agricultural area, which we know is going to become solar farms, not regular farms, because the dirt is not fertile enough for growing plants. It's kind of the high desert, like 2,000 feet elevation. So it's mostly cacti grow there. But it is in the prime UV sunlight area in the United States. It's like maybe second in the entire United States in terms of the amount of UV radiation that it gets and the number of days per year that's sunny. So a lot of our clients are just buying this solar farm, green energy land, and then selling to an energy company like Southern California Edison, PG&E. Even Warren Buffett has a $2 billion solar farm about a half a mile from one of my properties. I'm hoping he expands to the east and wants my property, because if he does, part of the thing, I'm going to say, Rocky, I'm going to tell you, part of my deal breaker is he has to take me out for lunch. That's going to be in the contract. You must take Bradley K. Warren out for lunch, and you, Warren Buffett, will pay for it. He will be your guest.
You're going to McDonald's.
Yeah, that's probably true. Hey, I didn't say where he's taking me out for lunch, right? You got to be very specific when you ask for something from the universe, because if you don't, you'll get it. I'll get lunch, but it could be McDonald's. You're right. Oh, we just did a plug for the Golden Arches.
I think that's where he stopped for his breakfast sandwich on the way into work. That's why.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
He is his own man, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
So I think you said a couple of very important things. You said land in the way of progress, in a sense. And I think this is the key here, is it's not just any land. It's picking it right so that as things move your direction, you pick up that wave. So I know for a fact the last 5 years, Nashville, it didn't matter where it was in the way of progress. I think a couple of years before it was Austin, Texas. The whole South right now compared to the North, it seems to be in the way of progress. Knowing what those areas are, knowing how to pick, and then making the right choices. So do you guys teach them how to make those choices, or is that not part of your program?
Nope. We have a research and let's see. Yeah, I'll just answer it this way. We have a research and acquisition department, full-time staff. And all they do right now, while you and I are talking on this Monday afternoon, they are researching to buy land within a 60-mile radius of downtown LA. That's the only place we invest. People say, how come you're not in the South? How come you're not in Austin? There's a lot of reasons why, but we've been in this one area for 44 years. We know it like the back of our hand. And our research and acquisition department knows how to find the right kind of parcels that are zoned the way we want them to be zoned in the locations that we want them to be. In fact, our criteria, we have a 16-point comprehensive analysis checklist, and every piece of land goes through these 16 questions. And if it doesn't get 16 yes check marks, we don't buy it. We reject 29 out of every 30 that we look at, and we only buy one, which then becomes available to our investors. And then their job is to have the patience to wait. And we tell people 7 to 10 years. That is an overall average for the people that we know that have sold. That's how long they had to hold. Some sell sooner, some sell later, but on average, it's 7 to 10 years. So not everybody has the stomach to just sit there and do nothing for 7 to 10 years, unless maybe it's in your retirement account. A lot of my clients will use self-directed IRAs, self-directed Roth. And that's where all of my properties, my wife's properties, we have them in our self-directed Roth IRA. It's going to be tax-free when we sell them. Well, 9 are in the Roth, 2 are in the regular self-directed IRA. So we'll owe Uncle Sam on 2 of the properties, but not on the other 9. So, and again, you got to talk to your CPA and your advisor. They got to talk to you. You got to look at, can I afford to put, our minimum is $25,000. Am I going to need that for a hip replacement or a knee operation or an around the world cruise? Remember I said, take the wife on the trip she's never been on. What if you have to spend the money on that? This has to be set it and forget it, patient money that you do nothing with except put it aside and wait. And then payday comes when you sell to the developer.
How much does the average parcel cost?
We have a range. $25,000 to $2 million is what I'm looking for as far as investors. $25,000. Now there's 5 zonings of land. I already mentioned the least expensive is non-residential agricultural. Then you have residential, industrial, commercial, and mixed use. The price goes up per zoning, but the profits go up per zoning. And I would say, most people, if they're just dipping their toe in the water, maybe just checking us out as a company and learning the process, they'll say, I have 25 to 75, or I have 55,000 or 48,000, and I would like a solar property. And we say, okay, great. So we will then find them a property in that price range. So it's by price range. It's not like we have 10. It's not like going to buy a house where the realtor puts you in the car, drives you around, you see all 10. By the end of the day, you don't even remember the first 3 that you looked at because it's like, oh my God, which was the one that had the 4 bedrooms and the 2 baths? And then you get to pick the one you want. With land banking, you give us a price range. We then use that 16-point comprehensive analysis. We find you a property. It's just for you. And then Marcella, my partner, puts together what's called a property profile. It's a 30-minute video. You get it. You watch it. It explains the 3-mile ring. It shows pictures from Google Earth about what's going in around it, what's already there. And she makes the case that this is a great property. You look at it and then you say, yep, 48,000. That's exactly the amount that I had. Yes, I want it. And then you get that property. It's yours. It's reserved for Rocky and nobody else.
And what do you expect in the way of returns for people who do that?
I got to be very careful so I don't lose my real estate license. I can never say guaranteed.
Nothing's guaranteed.
I can't even say expect. Let's just say historically, over the 44-year history of the company, we see returns of 3 to 7x, 3 to 7 times your investment. And again, it depends on the type of land. It depends how long you hold it. I'll give you an extreme example. Every year, the company takes the top producers on a trip. So a number of years ago, we're in Tahiti. And I'm talking to this guy, I'll just call him Fred. And he's the husband of one of the salespeople who is like the number 1 salesperson in the company. And I said, so Fred, do you and your wife own properties? Oh, yeah, we have quite a number. We've been doing this for a long time. I said, yeah, I know you're very wealthy. And what property have you got right now? He says, well, we got this one. We bought it for $400,000. And the last offer we turned down was $10 million. After my wife and I picked our jaws up from the ground, because it was like, what? I looked him straight in the face and I said, I just heard you say you turned down an offer on a property that you bought. And at that point, he had it over 10 years. It was well over 10 years, probably 12, 13 years. He had turned down 10 million. And I said, I hope I'm not being too personal or digging into your personal life, but what are you waiting for? He says, Brad, we don't need the money. We know the land is worth 15. And when we get 15, that's when we'll sell. I just heard recently he sold it for 18.
So he waited and got it.
I don't care if you had to wait 25 years. You put in 400,000, maybe you're paying, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 a year in property tax, maybe 4,000 a year in property tax. It's very little, 1%, be about $4,000. So over 25 years, you paid another 100,000. So it's $500,000 investment. And in 25 years, you went from 400,000 to 18 million. Would you do that? I would do that all day long. I would do that forever. I'd do it twice if I could. And most people that I ask that question to, yeah, that's like a no-brainer, Brad. $18 million. Not only would I be set for life, but my children and my grandchildren and maybe even my great-grandchildren would not have to work a day in their life, assuming, of course, that they spoke to you and you helped them put it into the right vehicles and coach them on the right way to get residual income off that 18 million. They would not have to work a day in their life for the rest of their life and their kids and their grandkids. So the upside potential is that's an extreme example, but we like to be conservative and say somewhere between 3 and 7x. And then if you do it again, now you're actually talking about some decent money. Even if you start with 25 and you turn it into 100 and the 100 becomes 400, well, that's not bad in 20 years. You went from 25,000 to 400,000. And depending on the vehicle that it's in, it could be tax-free if it's in a Roth. So it's a fascinating field, this whole area of land banking. And I've just been blessed to have met Marcella and to have gotten involved in it, both as an investor. Oh, and then I became what's called a finder. A finder is a referral partner. Marcella paid me for sending my friends to her if they bought. She would pay me a very, very generous, we call it a marketing consultation fee. And I would get a 1099 miscellaneous income at the end of the year. But I have made, by my last estimates, I think I'm over $56,000 in referral fees. And by the way, I stopped getting the referral fees 5 years ago when I became a real estate agent. I stopped referring business to Marcella. I kept those people as my own clients. Just 3 weeks ago, I got another check from somebody I referred over 5 years ago to her. $1,140. Mailbox money. Just showed up in the mailbox. I'm laughing all the way to the bank. I don't even know who it was that I referred to her. It's so long ago. But that person bought another property and I got paid. So I love being a finder on those clients. And I love finding finders and having them send me their friends and I will pay them the referral fee.
And there are lots of ways to look at what is going on in the markets, where things are growing. If someone wants to not be in LA, there are so much data available today to see what is happening. I think U-Haul puts out a report that shows where all their trucks are going to. So you can see, hey, everyone's leaving here and going there.
Yep.
The other one that people talked about is look at where Starbucks is expanding to. So these large companies in the food services and other industries, they spend a tremendous amount of time and money to scout out locations and zones to go into. And so just by being aware of what's going on in an area or around yourself or watching, this is how these types of things come and go.
I'm so glad you brought that up because sometimes I forget about this. Walmart does that. From my understanding, from the research that we've done, Walmart bases its location one Walmart per 200,000 people population. Mm-hmm. Okay, the one Walmart, 200,000. In the Antelope Valley, one of the areas where we invest, Lancaster and Palmdale, which is 60 miles away from downtown LA. Guess what? There's 5 Walmarts. Okay, 5 times 200,000 equals 1 million. But the current population of Lancaster and Palmdale is 410,000. You got to ask yourself, why has Walmart already built like 3 extra Walmarts in an area where it doesn't meet their population projections except if they're expecting the population to grow that large. And literally, the mayors of Lancaster and Palmdale are on record as saying by 2030, which is only 6.5 years from now, the population of the Antelope Valley will be, guess what the number is? 1 million people. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen or not. That's way beyond my ability to predict, but that's what these people are making their predictions on. So they know Walmart's already got the buildings in place. They're already bought the land when it's really cheap and built the building, and it's there. And as the population increases, they will be able to handle it. That's just one factor that we look at, one way to tell that the area that we're buying the land in and giving, selling it to our investors is in a strategic growth area.
And that makes a lot of sense. There's lots of ways to get, I'll call them proxies to where success is happening.
Correct.
And to get ahead of it. And the same thing happens in gentrification. There's so many different ways to do this. It's all a matter of, do you want to do the work? Do you want someone else to do it for you? How busy are you? Will you, going back to what you talked about, take action by when? Right? And how will you go about doing that? In having different streams of income is always good, and diversifying your assets into a variety of things is also good. The one thing about land is land never goes away, right? So to speak. I mean, yeah, sure, it changes, but it is a finite resource. And the reason that land in California is so expensive is because of all the zoning and the rules, which makes it more and more valuable over time. And if you happen to know where the highway's going or the trains are going or whatever it is, you have an opportunity to pick up tremendous wealth without a lot of effort.
Well, you remember earlier I said there were these 10 economic trends? You just alluded to one of them. Infrastructure growth. Follow the roads. Follow the infrastructure. Lancaster and Palmdale, from their city government resources, put $180 million into widening the off-ramps on Highway 14, which runs through the two cities. You got to ask yourself, why would a city government spend that kind of money to update the off-ramps unless they knew something was coming where those off-ramps are, like housing, like 4 gas stations, or pretty soon there'll be charging stations. It won't be gas anymore. It'll all be electric. And that's another trend that we follow, is the whole electrification of California and Teslas and the cars. Do you know Tesla accounted for 1/4 of new car sales in California in the last couple of years? Wow. 5 years ago, it was 4%. From 4% to 25% in less than 5 years. Where do you think it's going the next 5 years? If they're not at 50%, I will be shocked, and maybe more.
Well, now they have competition.
They do. Yes, they do. In fact, every major car company in the world, if you read the right newspapers, the right magazines, the right industry periodicals, every car manufacturer in the world, not just in the U.S., in the world, has declared by 2035 or sooner, they will not sell internal combustion engine gas-powered cars anymore. New. Now, you'll still be able to get them, used, but no more internal combustion engine cars beginning in 2035. They're all going to be electric. Oh, by the way, they're doing this with buses. They're doing this with the trucks that haul all the goods, especially the ones that come into Long Beach and LA Harbor, the busiest harbor in the United States. All those containers, when they get offloaded, what happens to them? They get put on a truck and they get driven to a warehouse. Oh, that means they got to build warehouses now too. And that's some of the land that we're selling is warehouse land, because they're building them. You can't build them in LA. LA is all built. You got to be outside the city, but close enough because everybody wants their stuff when? Tomorrow. I call Amazon. I go online on that. I don't call anymore. You go online, you buy something from Amazon, next day delivery. Well, you got to have the warehouse close enough to the person's house, and 60 miles is close enough to guarantee that it's there the next day. So right now we're experiencing a huge increase in vacant land for warehouses because they're just building them like nobody's business.
That has been probably the number one driver economically here for land prices is these massive warehouses. And it's because we have the highways and the infrastructure and the proximity to the majority of the East Coast inside of a few hour drive. Yep. And it's just unbelievable. And that then created a second boom, which was they're sucking up all the employees at high wages. Nobody else can find people to work, and we don't have the people here to support it all. So
yep. It's all connected.
All of these things are connected. They happen. They all tie together. And, had I been smart enough to notice, I could have gone out and bought a whole bunch of land that was relatively cheap next to the highway. And
shoulda, coulda, woulda, Rocky. Mm-hmm. And we all have those opportunities. They've all gone flying by. I just decided back in 2012, I was going to seize the bull by the horns. In fact, that first property that I got, I didn't even have enough to buy it myself. It was mixed use. It was the highest zone property. And Marcella said, look, normally we only offer mixed use to our current clients, but because you're my friend and I have good standing in the company, I've gotten an exception. It's $115,000 for a 1.25 acre property. Do you want it? I said, I don't have $115,000. I wound up buying 17% of that property. My wife eventually got 17%. So that's 34. Then we have a 22 and a 44. So there's 4 of us invested in this one property. So you can go in with non-family member, up to 4 non-family can pool their money, and up to 8 family members can pool their money. So if you don't have the 25, get a friend with 12.5 and you have 12.5, the 2 of you together can still get in. So there's a bunch of different ways. And again, that's getting a little bit in the weeds. I can talk with people about that if they get a hold of me and explain further. But it's an incredible opportunity. I left a 40-year, very lucrative career as a coach, as a business coach and speaker, to just do this full time. And I love it. I don't, people say, are you still working? I said, no, I don't work. Are you retired? No, I'm not retired. Well, how can you work but not be retired? It's because I love what I do. It's not work. It's fun. I get to meet people like you. And this is what I'm working right now. I'm, doing a podcast. Hopefully some of your listeners will call and I'll get a couple of clients. Well, how much more fun could it be to spend an hour chatting with you about stuff I love? Obviously, your listeners can't see my face, but I've been smiling the whole time for an hour. My cheeks hurt because I just love talking about that. I love talking about dirt. It's just fascinating. And I'm still learning after all this time. In 2012, it's 11 years. I'm still learning about the industry. That's how new it is to me, all the nuances. And it's a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun.
And I agree with you. When you do what you love, I do as well. It's no longer work. It's just fun. I will say this. If you're going to do this with other people, you need to have an ironclad agreement up front on how you will dispose of the property and how you will dispose of the property when you are not in agreement, because there's a good chance you may not be. And if you plan this up all up front, you won't have years of hassles. I prefer, when I make these types of decisions, I prefer to do it myself so that I don't have to ever deal with that. It's the better way. But if you need to, then just make sure you are crystal clear up front on what that looks like. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
Gratitude, being grateful and expressing it, not keeping it to myself, but sharing it with other people. I talk to flowers now and tell them how much I love their beautiful colors when I'm out walking. And yeah, I would say gratitude would be the key one.
You know what? I think it's the number one response we get. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner? Due
diligence. Doing, Rocky, for every dollar I've made, I could probably show you $1 or 50 cents that I lost on investments of all different kinds. And I wish that I had it drilled further into me to not just take the word of the person, even though I trusted them completely. It doesn't always work out the way they say it's going to work out. I would have done a lot more due diligence and been a lot more careful in what I invested in.
I think we talked about that halfway through the episode. So many of the things we put our trust in don't do what they're supposed to. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Wow. Take 10% of every dollar you earn and put it into a savings account of some kind, or put it somewhere and use that money to start investing in whatever area you choose. Could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, crypto, apartment buildings, syndication, REITs. I don't care. But start early, 10% out of every paycheck to invest. And I would say 5% out of every paycheck for personal development classes to keep expanding your knowledge and your ability to make wiser choices over time.
I agree with you, but I think we should double it.
Okay. I figured 18, even 10% might freak them out. That means that I just made $100. I got to take 10 and invest it, and 5 invest in myself, and 10 invest in. That only leaves me $85 left over. Oh, and then I got to pay Uncle Sam out of that. I'm going to have like $50 maybe. I said, yes, that's what I'm telling you. Listen to me. I'm 72 years old. I made every freaking mistake you can make. You don't want to repeat the bad stuff that I did. You want to do the good stuff. And that's one of the good stuffs.
If people would like to learn more about you and land banking, what's the best way for them to do so?
Email. It's the fast. I respond within 24 hours. Even when I'm on vacation, I do, quote unquote, work a little bit while I'm on vacation with my laptop. I'll check emails maybe twice a day. But it's just my name, Brad at bradwarren.com. BradWarren. Brad at bradwarren.com. You'll get a response within 24 hours, and we'll set up either a phone call or Zoom. I like Zoom, by the way. I don't have to travel. I don't pollute. I don't use gas. I don't get fat eating a lot of food and taking people out. So we'll set up a Zoom so we can see each other, talk, and we'll talk dirt. We'll get down and dirty in the dirt.
Sounds like a plan. We'll put it in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure, Rocky. Thank you for having me.
What do you think? Land banking, a way that you might want to explore? We really didn't dig into the fact that you can use retirement accounts and self-directed Roth IRAs in doing this. It is a great way that you get to do it and keep all the gains and pay no taxes. Just be careful. You have to do it right. And the experts don't always know what they're talking about. And you can use self-directed IRAs to do a bunch of other things as well. Just again, it's the right tool for the right job based on your goals. And I think that's where people sometimes get off track. Buying land is definitely a way to build wealth. It is long-term. Good planning helps you decide, though, how to build your savings plan to get the results you need. Bad planning, we sell at a discount, which, you know what? If you're a shopper, is great because now you get to buy stuff on sale. I love the fact that he talked about accountability and taking action with time frames around it. It really doesn't matter what we're talking about in life. That is so important for all of us to do. Do you know someone who might be interested in buying land? Maybe a partner for you who might go in on a deal? Why not share the episode with them? I would appreciate it. And if you like to share on social media, I'd love that. Tag me. Thank you for doing that. Love to hear your thoughts on this or any other episode, go ahead and email me. Thank you for listening. Have an abundant week.